For those of you who don't know, I'm Jeff. I do a lot of the content at Start, Grow, Manage. Joe is the MSP guru who's been running MSPs forever. And well, I guess not forever. There was a time before MSP space, right, Joe?
There was a time before MSP space. We did a lot of DoD stuff and some biomedical engineering stuff, but then we ended up in the MSP space. I don't know.
Which is interesting, see, because Joe comes from a technical background, like most people starting MSPs. And it turns out that is the biggest problem that MSPs face. So we're going to talk today about how to start an MSP, right? We're going to talk about what it takes, what are the things that you need to focus on in order to start an MSP. And we're just going to have a discussion about this. I'm Jeff, so I always have some slides prepared. So that's going to be fun. As we get started, right, I do want to put this within the context of business. You know, when we talk about MSPs, we talk about technology a lot because it's a lot about technology. But starting an MSP is starting a business. It's a business. And I think that's the thing that we have to get our minds around. When you're starting a business, you have to attract people. You have to bring people in. There's like this fundamental thing that you have to attract customers, right, Joe? I mean, without customers,
Yep.
it is a sad, sad place.
Sad place. There's no money. There's no nothing without customers. Yeah.
So to attract customers, you have to get out there and make people aware of you. And here's the thing that we need to understand is that there are 33 million companies out there with 60 million employees. And any individual is getting 10,000 messages every single day. So when we talk about getting yourself known or having people find out about you, you have to compete with these 10,000 messages. And there was a time, Joe, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a time when you could just talk tech and you could stand out.
That's all you had to do was say DHCP, and people would go, "What?
What is that?
Name? Hey, can you fix mine?"
So, I mean, I've told you this story before, but when I started my first tech business, I've actually started a tech business, ladies and gentlemen. When I started it back in the mid-90s, it was my ability to understand Windows NT that was the only thing that mattered. Because people were like, oh my God, you understand this thing? That's unbelievable. Because it was like installing it was painful, right? I mean, everything was a challenge for businesses. So they didn't care about anything other than, do you understand how this software works? And I know, Joe, when you started your MSP, you sort of saw that transition away from having to be technical to having to be business.
And I'll say that I saw that transition in myself. I didn't really see the transition in the industry as much as I saw it in the things that I was doing, that I had to make the transition because I was freaking broke. I had 2 employees and they both made more than I did.
Yeah.
And because I was fixing technical problems and I was great technically and I was there and I was working like a gajillion hours a week. And, the work was fun and engaging and all that stuff, but I was still broke. And I was like, I got to figure out how to make money. And the only way you can make money is if you're fixing business problems, not technical ones. And that's what I for myself.
And I think that's what I mean by the transition, because I was able to just be, hey, I'm a tech guy. And it was fine. But now it's not enough to be a tech guy. It's just not enough to be a tech guy. And in the last decade or so, this has just become a bigger and bigger deal, right? Now, more than ever, you've really got to get into understanding your business, your clients, the people you're working with. But Joe, I am convinced that there is a conspiracy in the MSP market. I think that all of the people helping MSPs with marketing and starting their business, right, are all focused on making it as hard as possible for MSPs to do well. And I'm going to show you why, right? Because we talk about, like, I mean, you have to stand out in those 10,000 views or those 10,000 messages, right? And that means
Yeah.
that you have to be different. And we know that you can't be different in technology because the market shifted, right? And your business did nothing until you started focusing on business issues. So that was crucial to the business. And yet, Joe,
Yeah.
and yet, this is like what I see when I go out and I look at MSP marketing and I'm like, oh, let's look at MSP marketing and find really good examples of differentiation. I see this type of thing. Let us worry about IT so you don't have to, which is oh so original. This is about 50% of all MSP websites, right? Technology simplified. Okay, got it. We do your technology, you run your business. Accounting service. This is actually the best one. Accounting IT services, right? At least they're saying it's IT services. It's something different than everybody else, right? But this is like one in a thousand, right? Most of them are, hey, managed IT services. And so my thing, Joe, is that when I say there's a conspiracy, it's because we know, we know that you have to be different. And yet, everybody is telling MSPs to be exactly the same as everybody else, right? And you know that if you're out car shopping and all of the cars that you're buying are exactly identically the same in every way, how are you going to make the decision, Joe?
Price.
It's
Why
the
not?
only way you can decide. You're looking at
No.
exactly identical things. The only way that you can decide which one you're going to go after is
Yeah.
price.
Price. Whenever I see a product anywhere, I go immediately to Amazon and I look for that product and see if that product is available. If it's not available on Amazon, if I can only buy it from the website that is selling it, like I recently bought a webcam
Yeah.
and it doesn't exist anywhere but on their website, and it's really expensive, right? But I can look you right in the eye now, and it's really good. But I couldn't buy it anywhere but on their website.
And if you look at webcams, like anybody who's selling a webcam, right? I'm going to tell you a secret, Joe. They're all cameras. Like they're really not that different. But what they do is they market it and sell it differently. And they say, we have these features, we have these ways of doing things. We solve this problem for you better. We're better at YouTube, we're better at streaming, we're connected to Zoom, I don't know, whatever. It's hard to differentiate these things. And one of my favorite examples of this is the story that I tell all the time about when we were going to invest in a skincare product, right? And we're talking to these guys and we're saying, hey, who's your target customer? He said, well, anybody with a face. And I said, well, anybody with a face, like, that's not a target customer. And this is what MSPs say. They say, well, but I can help anybody with a face. I can help anybody with a customer. And here's the problem with that, Joe, is that nobody cares. Your customer does not care about the fact that what you can do helps everybody. This guy has a face. And the fact that he has a face, like he's very distinct in his personhood, right? He's a very distinct person. And so when we look at him and think about how we're going to sell to him, we have a choice, right? So either he's going to buy this war paint for men that's all tough and gray and black lines and toughness on the left hand side, or this tough guy is going to buy the Estee Lauder in light blues and pastels with lots of women swimming around in a pool in a happy place, right? I mean, which is he going to buy?
Well, he's clearly, look at the guy. He's clearly gonna buy the war
He's
paint.
gonna buy the war paint. And yeah, I know there's one of those guys who's not gonna buy the war paint. But the thing you have to market to is, if you're gonna market the war paint, you're gonna market to that guy. If you're marketing the Estee Lauder, you're marketing to someone else, right? And even this is true, even though the contents are identical. Even though the contents are exactly the same thing, and both of these could work for whomever, You have to market to one. I actually had a conversation the other day with an MSP, and I was talking about a pricing model that we had. And I was like, oh, this is a pricing model. It's not really geared, I haven't MSPified it yet, but it's a pricing model, and the language is all about well being. And he says to me, but I want something that's really about MSPs. I want something that's for MSPs. And when we talk to MSPs, Joe, I mean, do we say, are they looking to us and they go, oh, we really want generic consulting and advisory services? Have you ever run into anybody like that?
No, no.
No.
Anybody that I've talked to in any business that I've ever sold anything to has never said to me, oh, I just want really generic services.
Nobody buys that way, right? And there was a time when knowing technology was not generic, but that time is past. So the reason that we say that if you are starting an MSP coming from a technology background is almost a disadvantage, because most MSP owners don't thrive and they can't market their product because they're focused on the wrong thing. Any guesses what that is, Joe?
Technology. They're
It's
focused on
technology, right?
they're focused on technology. And if you focus on technology, you're focused on the wrong thing. But people will go nuts, right? When we say that. Like I say that to an MSP, hey, if you're focused on technology, you're focused on the wrong thing. Most of the time, they're like, no, but that's what I do. That's what I have to focus on. I have to sound smart. I have to say it. They have to know how much we know.
Well, so here's the thing that we need to back up on that a little bit, right? Because you are going to do technology. What you do is technology, but it's a bit like you're a mechanic. And you can be a mechanic for a Corolla or a mechanic for a Formula One car. And the type of mechanic work that you're doing is very different. The price you charge is different. The way you work is different. Your SOPs are different. You're still a mechanic. And I'll bet you the Corolla mechanic can probably have some good ideas for how to maintain a Formula One car. And the Formula One guy can probably figure out how to fix a Corolla, right?
Yeah.
But the point is that the Corolla guy is selling to people who have Corollas, and the Formula One guy is selling to the people who have Formula One cars. You're not selling, oh, hey, I'm a mechanic. And I'll bet you if you look at your local mechanic, they'll say things like, oh, we focus on foreign made cars, or we focus on sports cars, or we focus on this, right? Because it's a much better way to sell. But I think the idea of the mechanic is it's like that tech, right? But Joe, you had that experience the other day about the manage in MSP, right?
Oh, man. You're either a managed services provider or you're a break fix guy, right? And
Right.
if you're managing services, that means that you have to manage the conversation that you're having with the client.
Right.
And it's a management conversation, right? Conversation about the outcomes that the company is trying to produce and how you communicate to the end users and how you communicate to the client and how you manage the vendors, right? Like you really have to manage the vendors. You can't go and be like, I don't talk to that vendor. That vendor talks directly to the client. What's the line of business application? I don't know what the line of business application is. That they deal with that, right? We deal with their Office 365. Well, then you're not a managed services company.
Right. And we've seen that as well with managed service providers who aren't communicating to their clients. Like they'll make technical changes and not communicate with their clients, right? And that's not managing the services. That's just doing stuff. That's just doing technical work, but you're not managing. So there are a lot of MSPs out there, Joe, that are really break fix companies that are charging a service fee. And I don't think that's a sustainable model. And I think that's why it's so hard to sell MSP services, because what a lot of people are doing is that they are selling break fix as managed services. And I think that's a really hard pill for your customer to swallow.
Yes.
So let's talk about what the alternative is, because we have a model for the alternative, what that might look like, right? So if we look at that, we start really by understanding the strategy, right? So it's about the strategy of your business. You have to understand what your strategy is going to be. And we use this model from David Collis and Michael Ruckstadt, which is a very simple one. And what they say is that there are three things that you really need to focus on, right? And those are your customer needs, company liabilities, and the competitive offering. So it's what you do, what they need, and what the competition is offering, right? And that where you want to be as a company, where you want to work is or offer or your services need to be in that sweet spot where their customer needs that you are offering that your competition isn't offering, right?
And
So that's the
that's a
competitive.
magical spot right there. That spot, that little spot right there, that's a magical spot,
So
right?
the problem with the magical spot is that as an industry matures, like as the tech industry has matured, right? That competitive sweet spot has diminished significantly because now everybody can do tech, right? I don't need somebody special to help me set up my computer. I just open it up and it's like, hey, would you like to set up an email? Enter this in. It's all automated. It's all scripted. It's all done for me. I don't need somebody. So what that means is that there's a lot of price competition, and you can see those customer needs are not being met because rather than meet customer needs, we're getting closer to the competition, right? And that leads to this, and it leads to the annoyance of lots of calls of not being able to market, not being able to create standard processes.
And the reason for that is because every call that comes in is so different. Everything that comes in is so different. Everything is like, oh yeah, we're doing over here we're doing CMMC. Over here we're doing HIPAA compliance. Oh yeah, over here we're doing, and so I need a different tool for this. I need a different tool for that. And I need we got a new client. They have FINRA compliance. Oh, so the tools that I'm using over here don't work. So I have to, and then everybody's calling you because none of the tools are working the way they're supposed to because there's only like 10 people in your company and you're
You
supporting
have to
20.
know and understand 600 different compliance frameworks and tools
Yeah.
and pieces of software, and
Oh,
you
God.
can't do it. But you
God.
can't be a managed service provider unless you understand that. So you're stuck in this constant space of unmet needs.
Yes.
And I'll tell you how we know. How we know when we talk to people, because people come to us all the time, like our clients who get sort of our one-on-one coaching, they come to us and the first thing we ask is, who's your target market? And and invariably they tell us one of a few things, right? So they'll come to us and they'll say, well, the honest ones will say something like, well, my target market is everybody. And then there's the creative, clever, funny type, right? And
Let's not confuse.
honestly, this tells you more about the person you're talking to than it does about their market. But the clever, funny, oh, I can tell a pun type is anybody whose check will clear, right? And then there's the delusional type, which is actually my favorite, right? The delusional type, which is, we do SMBs, right? And I don't know who taught people to use acronyms anyway, but don't use
It's,
acronyms. But what we
but
mean by small, medium sized,
it's not just SMBs. It's SMBs, 5 to 500 users
yeah,
between 1 and $25 million in annual revenue.
right.
But here's the special part that want to grow.
Yeah. So basically, when you say that, you're talking about 93% of businesses. So basically, you're talking about everybody. And I would argue that any one of those, if somebody comes to them and they're a little bit bigger and want to spend a little bit more money, I don't think any MSP in that space would turn them away. They'd just bump right back up to, well, will your check clear? Right? And then they will service them. So basically, they're selling to everybody, which brings us to the last category. And again, this is philosophical, right? So now we're philosophical, and that is, you ready, Joe? We are
Agnostic.
agnostic. Now, there are two ways that agnostic is used in the MSP space, right? One way is that we say that we're going to be vendor agnostic. And yeah, you should be vendor agnostic, right? Like your ideal position is to be vendor agnostic, but not be customer agnostic, right? But what you will find is that actually your vendors are going to start adding value to you in a way where you're like, oh, they're different, right? They're solving a real problem for me. So it's harder to be vendor agnostic. But vendor agnostic is ideal because then you can squeeze your vendors, which means if you are agnostic to your customers, they prefer that because then they can squeeze you,
You.
right? Which is why we say agnostic is where MSPs go to die. It's where they go to lose their souls in a pit of 2 a.m. phone call despair, right? Agnostic is where MSPs go to die because that's where you look like every single other person out there and you are focused exclusively and 100% on that little tiny sliver of not being differentiated and not meeting customer needs. So, what is the solution, Joe?
You move closer to those who love you so you can
Get
love
closer to the customers so you have a bigger competitive sweet spot. You understand what they need, what they're doing, how your technical capabilities helps them achieve their goals. So you have a smaller group of customers that you're going after, but now you're meeting their needs, so they're a lot happier. You can charge more money. And guess what? You can compete with fewer messages out there because now your messages are going to stand out. So your key is to get close to your customer. And one way to do that is to, or the best way to do that, and this is what we do in the launch formula, is we start with this idea of understanding what it is you actually do for your customer. And I love this image from Mario Brothers, right? So if anybody who's played Mario Brothers in the past, your person who's a potential customer is Mario, right? And the thing that you do is a fire flower, right? So now you're like, what you do is fire flower, and what you sell is not the fire flower. That's what you do. That's what you make. That's your product. What you
yeah.
sell is awesome Mario who can do amazing things, right? And so
I like that.
what you have to figure out
When you said that,
is how is how you change what you do to enable your customer to do amazing
and
things.
amazing things.
So, what you don't want to do is sell technology plumbing. We always call it plumbing, right? What we want to do is use business practices that will allow you to leverage your technical expertise to create a business and sell a business solution that will help your customers.
Hmm.
So, I'm going to give you the 7 things that you need to do to start your MSP. You ready, Joe?
Let's do it.
All right,
Bring
how
it,
to
baby.
start an MSP. Because if we don't do the preamble, if we don't take people through that journey, then everybody rejects the ideas, right? The first thing they reject is identifying the ideal client. This is fundamental to the entrepreneurial experience. I have an MBA in entrepreneurial studies, and one of the things that we started with on day one was you have to identify your ideal client, right? You have to identify your ideal client and you have to get to know them so that you can solve a problem for them. So get to know them, understand the problem you're solving. Now, look, we're on step 2, no technology yet, right? Oh, look, step 3, still no tech. Build a solution to solve their problem. So your solution is probably going to, have your tech stack is going to have some technical structure there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is kind of where technology comes into play. But you're really thinking about not so much, oh, now I'm making Office 365 work, but you're thinking about, all right, what is the technology that my customer needs in order to achieve that job that they need to get done? And how am I going to deliver that
Yeah,
to
I'm,
them?
I'm working with architects. How do I make their network faster so they can deliver their projects on time and on budget? Right?
Correct.
Like what can I do? Do I put in fiber switches? Do I do SSDs? Is there a faster drive? How do I build the machines? Do I build them like gaming rigs? Like you're now thinking about the specific problem that that customer has, and how do you solve that specific problem? Like
100%.
you get deep in the weeds here.
You're
Yeah,
in
that's,
your customer's weeds. You're like
that's,
looking at the roots of your customer's weeds. You're so deep in the weeds because that's how you're getting closer to them and meeting their needs. And guys, I know there's a reluctance to do this, but you've got to get to know them. That means you have to talk to them. You have to do industry research or avatar research because it might not industry might be too broad, guys. You might even have to get narrower than industry. You might have to get so specific, and that means research and questions and asking people things.
it's really important to understand that industry is insufficient.
Yeah.
Is a buyer inside the company that has an acute problem. That's your landing spot. That's where you first land in. And then you do the rest of the services that support that client. But where you land is with that particular person that has that particular problem.
Right.
One of the things that Jeff really clarified for me, I kind of knew intuitively, but I didn't have words for it, is that you're always selling to humans. You're never selling to a company or to an industry or to anything like that. And the joy of working with you, Jeff, has been that you've given me really clear language for that. Right? And it helps me understand that I'm always selling to a person. So I always have to know who the person is in the company that has a problem
That
that
you're
that I solve, so that I can talk to them, because they're the ones that, it speaks directly to them, the problem.
And so now you know that problem and you've identified your client, you've gotten to know them, and you've built a solution to solve their problem. Now you have to take that, and this is where you build the machine to deliver the solution. And what we mean by this is a business machine. It's an automations in your PSA, but it's also the SOPs and how you train your people and how you onboard and how you talk to people, how you communicate, how often you communicate, how you do your strategic, not technical, guys, strategic business reviews, right? All of these are a part of that machine, and you want to standardize so that anybody can do it. And then you hire, the more standardized things are, the more you can hire, trained monkeys to deliver. And I say that, but I mean, like, if you think about it, anybody that you hire doesn't know what you do. So you ideally want to hire people with lower skills, right? What I'm lovingly calling trained monkeys. And then you develop those. They use your SOPs, and then they develop into a tech or a person or something
Yeah.
that's working for you, but it's specific to you. What we always do is on the other side is we hire experts. We're like, hey, come here, expert, solve my problem for me. And that is not helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's interesting. I say this to people. In running your business, you want the business itself to be human centric. But in running your delivery specifically, you want it to be process centric, not person centric. Right? You want it to be process centric. Whoever is sitting in that chair really shouldn't matter.
Well,
What matters is the process clearly enough defined that somebody can go through it and do it.
Well, now I'm going to break people's minds, Joe, because a human centric business is actually process centric because it's a business that allows humans to do the things that they want to do rather
Yes.
than forcing you to do all of the stuff that there is to do, right?
Yes.
So,
That,
and
that is
along those lines, that means that the next thing you have to do is automate everything, right? You want to automate everything that you can. And through doing this, you get smarter and you get closer to your clients and then you can raise prices. So one of the conversations that we had, Joe, recently was around, how deeply do I have to understand my customers to get started here, right? The pushback is, well, I can't start working with XYZ ideal client because I don't know enough about them. And here's the thing is that you're always in that. If you focus on one specific avatar, then you can get smarter and smarter. And as you get smarter and smarter, you're building that intellectual property. You're getting closer to your customer needs, and that's when you can raise prices.
You may have 5 different customers and you sold them all the same way, but they all bought to fix their problem.
Right.
So the buyer is always buying to fix their problem. So you
Right.
better know how to deliver. The way you can build a process is you get good at solving one problem. The resistance is that, oh, well, I have to know everything about that industry before I start. No, you don't. You have to start the same way you started this. You just have to amass enough of the same type of problems, right? So that you understand how to solve them. That's how you
Well,
get
if
good at it.
you're working with one type of customer and the problems keep coming in and you're SOPing and automating everything, then you get smarter and smarter over time. And as you get smarter and smarter, you can raise your prices. You become stickier. It's harder for them to leave, and so on, right? And that is the key. Now you can create your growth engine, right? This is really when the predictable sales come in. This is when you have your marketing program set. This is when you can actually just click things in and you go off and maybe start the next business, right? But here is when you have that growth engine, you move into that next space. And you can only do that once you've really specified your business and your customers, right? So those are the 7 steps of starting your MSP, and we go through those 7 steps in the MSP Launch Formula. So for anybody who is interested in learning more about the MSP Launch Formula, we do start July 9th. This is our second
Woo!
report. We had great feedback from the first one, but if you go to the website, you will see some of the results that people have had, and you can find it at startgrowmanage.com/launch, or you can use the nifty little QR code if for some reason you have your phone out and you're looking at a screen, you want to go there. That'll work too. But take a look at this. And if you're thinking about starting an MSP, we end up, Joe, with so many clients who come to us after they've been slaving away at this for years, and they're tired and they're burnt out and they're not sure what to do next, and their kids don't know their names anymore, right? And then we have to go fix it. Just start it the right way from the beginning. That's why we put this program together. I mean, Joe tells his experience of starting his MSP and having all of this debt and all of the problems that came with starting that MSP, didn't know where to go, and then he figured it out, right? And what we want to do is give you the figured out piece rather than you going through the pain. So you don't have to go through all the pain that Joe went through, or half of our clients have gone through, frankly. I hope they're not watching. But anyway, you should have started the right way. You're going to have to do all of this one way or the other, so you might as well start from the beginning, right? So if you have any questions, let us know. Just drop it in the chat. We should be able to pick up the comments, and we should be able to answer them. Like I said, there's a lot that's answered on the Launch Formula page, and we're more than happy to take questions and answer them. Actually, I did get a question the other day just in my email. Somebody was asking about what could he expect and asking about the price models again. It's a great way for us to better understand our clients or our prospects, is for you guys to ask us questions. So the more questions we get, the better things are. And you can do that now, or you can do that later via email, whatever works for you. We did get a question. What's the difference between being a specialized MSP versus being an MSP with specialized departments? And this is a very good question,
That's an excellent
because
question.
this is one that comes up all the time. So why can't I have an MSP that focuses on architects? Like, one department focuses on architects, one department focuses on doctors, and one department focuses on automobile
Absolutely.
manufacturers.
You
You
could totally
can.
do
You can absolutely do that. Here's the problem with that is it's outrageously expensive to start. So what you have to do is you actually have to go understand each one of those industries and create the entire program for each one of those industries. And if you're doing it for 3 or 4 or 5 industries at the same time, I mean, that's the type of thing it takes a couple of years to do for one. So if you're doing it for like 5 at the same time, you're not doing it in a
well.
detailed way for any of them.
Well, you can, but if you've got like $8 or $10 million to burn,
Yeah,
then
sure.
you can
That's the money.
absolutely do it, right? So the thing that I say about that question is, if you've got money to burn, and while you're doing it, it's not a problem. But if you're going to do it from the ground up, then no.
But
You
Joe,
can't.
I'm a strategist, right?
Yeah.
And I have advised companies of all sizes, and I'm actually more used to having a big budget than a small budget. And I'll tell you that even at that level, even when you have the money, if you do have the money, you can do it. But even if you have the money, it's wasteful. Instead of like investing in one and getting it working and then going on to the next one, you're spreading your bets over this big area. And because you're spreading it, you're not going as deep in any of them. There's an attention span that you require there, and it's just impossible. I think, right? And but technically, if you have the money, you can do it. It's all about how much time, money, and effort you want to spend. And the quickest way to build your $10 million MSP, your $20 million MSP is to focus. And I promise you, if you go out and you look at entrepreneurs who built businesses as an angel investor, as an advisor, they focus. It's the narrower you are, is the more attractive you are. So I hope that answers your question on the difference between the two of them. One is an MSP really focused on one market. The other is an MSP focused on multiple markets. You can do both. Focusing on multiple markets in each department is expensive. So start with one, and then once you get that one done and you're at $25 million, then you can move on to the next one and the next one and the next one.
And
I
that is,
just okay on that. I also did talk to somebody who's an M&A person, and he was saying that he actually prefers them to be specialized, even if they are at $25 million, because he knows that they are getting the best return, right? So their margins are higher. Whereas if they've got multiple clients, then the margins are lower because they can't optimize their costs.
no, no, because if you're serving different compliance frameworks and different things, you have to have different tools. And so your costs are going to inflate automatically. The narrower you are, the more you can control costs all day, every day. You can do things with less people because you can automate more. It's just it works.
It works. It's fundamental. All right. So on that, Pinstripe IT is going to join us. I don't know who the person is behind Pinstripe IT, but they're going to join us on the Launch Formula, and they
Yeah.
promise difficult, challenging questions. So I look forward to the difficult, challenging questions because those are the best ones. Guys, on that, have an amazing day. Joe, take us out.
Remember that you are loved. We'll
And
see
next
you.
time.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one right now and tap into our insights and instincts to help drive your business vision and success. Remember, you didn't start your business to feel frustration. You started it for freedom. We can help you discover the impact, freedom, and wealth you always imagined. Learn more at startgrowmanage.com/learn more.